Hello friends. For those who don't know me, my name is Cyan. I'm mum to a nearly 3-year-old and I'm 38 weeks and 4 days pregnant. So any day now I will be mum to another tiny human. I thought I would share a few of the things that I'm doing to get myself ready for labour in mind, in body. These things are super easy to implement. It's never too late to start them and they don't take up a lot of time, which for me is key because I have a toddler. Anything that's time consuming is just going to be really hard for me to keep up on the daily. So I'd say these are things which are all like minimal effort, maximum reward. They're all things I did to prep for my first labour as well. And I had a very positive, unmedicated birth with no perineal tears. Maybe it was all just luck. I'd like to replicate it again this time. If I could have a copy and paste, yes, please sign me up. But I know it doesn't work like that. So we will wait and see what happens this time around. But these are still really positive things to do just to get you in the right mindset, make you feel a little bit more comfortable with the whole process. And if you're somebody who has a lot of anxiety around medical things or just around labour in general, I was definitely like that pre my first. And labour is obviously a big deal. So you just want to get your head around it all, you know? So I'm basically just going to take you through my day and you can join me as I do the things that help me. A couple of them I have already done today. So the first thing I want to shout out is hypnobirthing. If you're going into your first labour and you haven't yet looked into hypnobirthing, I would 100% recommend it. I used it with my first. It really was the thing that helped me overcome that fear and anxiety of the unknown. Just gives you a little bit more control over the moment. I gave birth in 2021. This is my second labour, so I didn't feel like I needed to do the whole course again. But what I did do is refresh my knowledge. The Positive Birthing Company, they have a hypnobirthing course, but they also have loads of YouTube videos and they've got some really helpful videos for up breathing and down breathing. And then I also looked into box breathing because that's another one that I used. And every now and then in the day, I just practice those breaths. Up breathing is the breath you want to use when you're having contractions. Your uterus is like moving up and squeezing. And essentially what you want to do is take a nice big breath in through the nose for 4, where you feel like your rib cage is expanding, like you're just filling with air. And then you breathe out of the mouth for 8. And you repeat that 4 times. The whole thing takes just less than a minute to practice. It also calms your nervous system. So it's just a really nice thing to do through the day. And then when you're actually in labour, you can use them when you're going through contractions. And then down breathing is the one you use when you're pushing. It's a bit shorter and sharper and you're kind of channeling your energy downwards. So the best time to practice that one is when you have a poo. Like I said, check out the Positive Birthing Company videos on that, or I'm sure there are loads of other videos on YouTube on hypnobirthing breathing as well. For me, just taking a bit of time out of my day to practice those breathing techniques and get myself back in that zone has been really helpful. It's kind of like a mini meditation as well because it just gets you focused on the purpose. And the other thing that I would say goes along with that spirit of mini meditation is the hypnobirthing affirmations. Before my first birth, I read a book called Your Baby, Your Birth by Holly DeCruz, and she has some recordings that come with her book. One of them is an affirmations, the other one's a relaxation. I use the relaxation one less just because I naturally have less time, especially having my toddler now. The affirmations one is about 15 minutes long. You can put it on at any time. You can be doing jobs while you're listening to it, cleaning, cooking, whatever. It's just on in the background. And all it is doing is repeating these statements that are about your birth being really purposeful and natural, working with your body, reminding yourself to just relax and take a moment. And I'm not really an affirmations girly at the best of times, I have to admit. I am a bit more of a cynical type. It's something I'm trying to work on a little bit, but the whole idea of affirmations, manifesting, all of that has just never really sunk in with me, if that makes sense. However, these hypnobirthing affirmations I do find really helpful, and I think just having the mantras really repeated into your head, like drip fed into your psyche, if you like, is really, really helpful.
I enjoy the energy and power of birth.
Have a look on YouTube because there are tons of videos. I personally would recommend choosing one that you like and just listening to it on the daily. Like I said, it can be done alongside other things like household things or when you're in the car, whatever it is. I just find them really helpful, really calming, and to know that if I'm in that situation in labour where I'm starting to feel a little bit stressed and anxious, I'll have these mantras kind of embedded in my brain to call on and hopefully chill me the F out. My hypnobirthing stuff I've already done today, so I thought I'd just zoom you through that. I'm going to go downstairs. I've got a midwife appointment in like 20 minutes and then I will share my other little labour preppy bits. This is the current state of affairs of my life. I finally went up in the loft and got my daughter's newborn bits out so that I could go through them, sort them, wash them for the new baby. I absolutely loved this cardigan and I'm so glad I get to use it again. And of course, the matching bobble hat. I would say the novelty of sorting through baby clothes, aside from the trip down memory lane, which is obviously lovely, like seeing the things my daughter used to wear and knowing that I'm going to get to use them again, top tier, but actually sorting through the clothes, washing them, hanging up tiny little pieces of baby clothing, not my favourite activity. And that is the next to me crib, which we have yet to put up. Paddington looks how I feel. Midwife appointment done. I thought it was going to be a straightforward one, but I ended up on the blimmin' CTG monitoring thing. Everything's absolutely fine. She's made me an appointment for a week today, so then I'll be 39 plus 4 days, And she said that at that appointment I could have a sweep if I want to. So I need to go home and read all about that. I mean, I know what a sweep is. I just don't really know whether I need to have one or whether I should take them up on it or whether I just leave it and let things happen. I didn't have one in my first pregnancy and I went into labour on my due date. They say that your second is often a few days before your first. I know that's not always the case, but that kind of makes me think, do I need to have a sweep? So yeah. Anyway, back home now for more baby laundry fun, and then catch up with you when I'm doing my next positive labour activity. It's much later in the day now. I had intended to film this bit a little bit earlier. My toddler did not nap at nursery today. I'm sure if you have little ones, you know exactly the kind of evening that we had as a result of that. So the next thing I want to talk about is birthing ball exercises. You can obviously get big balls, little balls, doesn't matter what size balls you want, as long as your balls are comfortable, that's all that matters. So I'm not really doing any other workouts at the moment as such. As I said, I'm halfway through week 38, so I'm about a week away from giving birth. I personally have not felt the pull towards working out during this kind of late stage. If you do, that's absolutely fine. But for me, these birthing ball workouts are perfect. The main two reasons that I'd really recommend doing these exercises: one, it gets your body limbered up for labour. It's either maybe working a bit of pelvic floor, working with your breathing, or just stretching and opening up a part of your body that needs to be open, like your hips, your rib cage. Different movements encourage different areas of your body to open up. The other reason that I really recommend birthing ball exercises specifically designed for labour prep is that a lot of them are designed to encourage your baby to get in the optimal position for labour. This is something that I think I have a little bit of a mental thing about, because when I went to my 36-week scan with my first baby, she was breech and I had to go for an ECV. I didn't have to, I opted to go for an ECV, which is where two consultants manually move your baby, they manually spin them so that they are facing the right way, facing the exit. I think the success rate of an ECV is about 50%. Luckily mine was successful. She was in a very awkward position. Not only was her head facing up, she was also kind of directly up my stomach. So rather than them being able to rotate her sideways, they had to push her kind of up and over towards my back. It was an incredibly uncomfortable experience, but obviously it did then enable me to have a really straightforward vaginal birth because she was facing the right way. Now, thankfully, this baby is head down, facing the right way, and fingers crossed that's not going to change in the next week. But still, even if a baby isn't breech, there can still be other things about their position that make birth a bit awkward, a baby being back to back, for instance. I just think the birthing ball exercises are a really nice purposeful way to encourage your baby into the right position and to just feel like you have that little bit more control over prepping them for what's coming. Obviously, there are no guarantees in pregnancy. I could do all of these things and still something might come up that means I need to have an emergency C-section, or that means my labour is prolonged, more painful than it perhaps could have been otherwise, etc. Like, these are just things you can't control, but I think doing these kind of exercises helps you take a little bit of control back, which, as a control freak, is something I enjoy. There are loads of different birthing ball exercises you can do, tons of workouts on YouTube. I follow a lady on Instagram called Dr. May Hughes, and she shares loads of pre and postpartum workout exercises, stretches, tips, pelvic floor tips, etc. And I basically just follow a few of her recommended movements. If I haven't got much time that day, I'll do a stripped back version. If I've got a bit more time, I will include a bit more. Some of my favourite movements are circling your hips, so you can do it in a clockwise rotation for a minute and then an anti-clockwise rotation. This is a great one just to do in front of the TV. Like, instead of sitting on the couch, I'll sit on the birthing ball for 5 minutes. Half of it I'll do one direction, half of it I'll do the other direction. Also some lunges using the ball, so you're moving backwards and forwards with your forearms on the ball to help you roll, and then you obviously switch legs and do the other side. That opens up your hips and feels just really nice. It's a really nice area to get a stretch on. And also some rotations where you're opening up your rib cage and just encouraging your upper body to get all loose and limber as well. But like I said, there are so many different exercises you can do, and I think the beauty of it is you could literally do it for a minute a day, or you could do it multiple times a day. If you have your birth ball just living in your front room or wherever you spend the most of your time, it's really, really easy to incorporate it. I just find it's really easy, it's not time consuming, it's not stressful, you're not going to get all sweaty, so you don't have to change your clothes or have a wash afterwards. It doesn't feel like a big effort as such. It's not a workout in the traditional sense, but it is a workout that's going to be really beneficial for your labour. Good morning. So I'm going to run you through my final 2 tips for getting yourself ready for the big day. This one is super important and one that we should actually be doing the whole time as women, but quite often we're not, because life just lifes, you know. Is of course your pelvic floor exercises. I was really regimented with these in my first pregnancy. I've been a lot more lax this time. And by lax I mean I started them quite late. I reckon I was about 36 weeks when I started doing them this time around, whereas last time I was doing them pretty much the whole way through pregnancy. Obviously in my mind as well, last time I was pregnant I was like, I'm going to keep this up forever. I'm just going to do this every day now for the rest of my life. Did that happen? No. I really am going to try my best, because especially, you know, as you're getting older, etc., your pelvic floor is just really important. Actually, I read something the other day, I don't know how true this is, I haven't done a scientific study on it, I haven't looked at any peer-reviewed articles, so maybe I'm just spreading misinformation, but I actually read that men are increasingly getting pelvic floor issues in mid to later life. And apparently something that can really do damage to your pelvic floor is sitting on the toilet for too long. If you're in the habit of taking your phone to the loo and just having a little sit, I don't actually do that because I feel like it distracts me, it gives me stage fright. I know some people do, and I know particularly men, or at least my man, can be a culprit for that. So yeah, just something to be aware of and pass on to your partners, that actually every time they sit on their phone for an extended period of time on the toilet, rather than just doing the job and getting back into real life, they run the risk of weakening their pelvic floor. So there are tons of apps, etc., that you can use for your pelvic floor, and you can even buy Kegel toys that actually go inside and help you kind of locate the muscles. It's the same muscles that kind of help you stop a wee mid-flow. Not that that's a good thing to do regularly, but it's that same feeling of if you were going to try and hold in a wee, that's what would be happening. And you want to try not to be sort of holding your breath at the same time. So it's not like your whole body's tensing, it's that you're really isolating those particular muscles and squeezing them. I'm doing them as I say it, which feels violating almost to you, but I think you can't help but talk about pelvic floors and do them a little bit. The app that I've been using is the same app as I used in my first pregnancy. It's the Squeezy app by the NHS. You can set it up to send you reminders. So I have a reminder in the morning and a reminder in the evening. The app is £3, but that's like a lifetime purchase then. It's a really simple interface. So you just go to Squeeze Now, but you can also set up different exercise plans, a bladder diary. So if perhaps you're working on your pelvic floors from an incontinence perspective, that's something that you can kind of log in here. And it also has your exercise record, which shows whether you've done 100% every day. So if I do 2 sessions every single day, I'll get 100%. And keeping an eye on the little graph can be quite motivating if you're like me and you want to be the class pet and have full marks. I just go on to Squeeze Now. Also, with the workout that it gives you, you can edit this. So it does 10 long squeezes, which I believe are 10 seconds on and maybe 5 seconds off. And then it does 10 short squeezes, which is 1 second on, 1 second off. If you're finding that too challenging at first, particularly the long squeezes, you can edit them in an app to make them shorter. Also at the bottom here, you can have it set to vibrate, which I do. So it vibrates for the start of the squeezing window and the end of the squeezing window. That's really handy if I'm doing this while I'm watching TV or something. Like I don't want to be looking at the phone screen to know when to squeeze and not, but I'll just hold it in my hand, and when it buzzes, I know that I can relax or that I'm squeezing again. And you can also have a sound operated mode, so it will make a sound when it's the start of your squeezing window and make a sound when you can relax. So basically you just tap to start, and then when it's orange, you are squeezing. You've got 2 visuals, so you've got this which moves around, and then you've also got the little balloon which goes all the way up, and relax. And then once you've finished all the long squeezes, you have the short ones, 1 second on, 1 second off. And that's it. So I've done my slow, I've done my quick. I just click save and it'll say my next squeeze, my next reminder will be today at 9 p.m. So I usually do my morning ones around this time, around breakfast. I like to do the morning ones stood up. Don't know why I feel like mixing it up is just going to make it better. So morning ones I do stood up, and then the evening ones at 9 p.m. I'm sat in front of the TV and I do them sat down. Super easy. The whole thing takes less than 2 minutes. You can do it alongside other things, and I cannot stress enough how worthwhile it is, because pelvic floor issues post-labour or any time are not what you want. The very last tip that I have is going to be very personal to you. Some people want to do this, some people don't, but for me I found it really helpful, and I'll explain why. It is harvesting colostrum. Colostrum is basically your first milk. It's what you have pre-labour and what you have for the first few days after your baby's born, before your proper milk comes in, otherwise known as liquid gold, because firstly quite golden in colour. This has actually gone quite pale because it's frozen, but it does come out quite yellow, and it is packed full of so much goodness for your baby, so many nutrients, so many antibodies. It's just a really rich and valuable first food for them. Now please do check with your midwife and your your local health guidance, because I know this differs depending on where you live. Like in some places you're only encouraged to harvest colostrum if you have gestational diabetes, I believe. In the UK, the advice generally is that you can have a go at harvesting colostrum from 36 or 37 weeks. Double check that. I'll link the NHS page down below so you can have a look. And there are loads of good reasons to do it. There are some reasons why you shouldn't. So for example, if you have a low-lying placenta, you're not encouraged to do it. Nipple stimulation can bring on contractions. I follow Professor Emily Oster, and she has said on a few occasions that most of the data shows you would have to be stimulating that area for like 3 hours for it to actually bring on contractions. Or perhaps if you had an actual breast pump, obviously you're just stimulating with your hands when you're harvesting colostrum. So the likelihood it's going to bring on your labour is slim, but it's worth knowing that that risk is there, and also that's the reason why you only do it in those very last stages when your baby is full term. People have all sorts of reasons why they might want to harvest colostrum. One of my personal reasons for me, especially in my first pregnancy, I felt like it really helped me familiarise with my body. I knew I wanted to breastfeed, but I'm not the most salt of the earth person when it comes to how familiar and comfortable I am with my body. It's kind of hard to explain, but I do think it's kind of wrapped up in neurodivergence, anxiety, health anxiety, I don't know. I can find things to do with my body quite overwhelming, quite anxiety inducing. And for me, it just felt like a really nice step between being pregnant, knowing I wanted to breastfeed, and actually breastfeeding. It helped me get used to my body. It helped me get used to the motion of hand expressing. I don't know, there was a mental shift. It just kind of gave me a sense of calm over the whole thing. And also knowing that if I'd then gone on and not been able to breastfeed for whatever reason, my baby still would have had this little bit of colostrum at the start of their life. You know, I mean, every little helps in that direction. So it just gave me, again, a little sense of control over something I didn't really have any control over. Also, I'd just like to say my experience of harvesting colostrum with my first pregnancy did not look like this, especially not at the beginning. I remember watching loads of videos on how to. I made the room really dark. I put candles on. I put music on that I liked. I massaged for a little while. Then I tried, and it really was slow progress. Like, this is nearly 8 ml full, but the first time I harvested, I reckon, I can't even remember if I got anything the first time. And then I tried again and just kept everything really calm and serene. And I guess with your first baby, you kind of have time to do that as well. But I maybe got like 1 or 2 ml. Most of my syringes towards the end probably looked more like this, like 4 ml, maybe 5 ml. Whereas this time, I guess my body has just remembered what it's doing. And also I'm a bit more used to it. Every little helps. Also, the day that I had Rue, I chose to stay in hospital that night to have breastfeeding support. Alex went home to get a good night's sleep. I was in bed. I could not sleep because Rue was really mucousy when she was born. She kept coughing up like lots of gunk, and I was just so nervous about it. I was just absolutely wired. And the midwife came in and she was like, you really need to try and get some sleep. Let me take her for a couple of hours. I'll give her some cuddles in the office, which is just across the corridor. Like, you can come over anytime. Because I had the colostrum, the midwives were able to feed her this as well in that time. So I got like 3.5, 4 hours sleep, I think, while the midwife just had her. And it was magical. That was probably the longest stretch of sleep I had for a good 6 months after that. If you end up with any extra, it's really good for putting on baby's skin, especially when they get that newborn acne. It's good for putting in their bath water. It's good for putting on your nipples if they're cracked and sore. It has a lot of uses. You can Google them. It's pretty good stuff, and I personally have found it really helpful. You can get these sterile syringes from your midwife, or you can order them on Amazon. Make sure you do get sterile ones. Sterile 1 milliliter syringes, and all I do is I put a sticker around it which has my name, my hospital number, my date of birth, and when it expires, so you can freeze it for up to 3 months. So I just write 3 months from the date that I expressed it. Freeze them. When we go to hospital, Alex will grab 3 or 4 of these with an ice pack to bring with us, and at the midwife unit they'll pop them in the fridge for you. And yeah, it's just something that I personally have found really helpful. And if you're someone who you want to breastfeed, or you're not sure if you want to breastfeed, or maybe you don't want to breastfeed at all, but you'd like the chance to give your baby that first little nutrition kick, then I think it's a really good thing to do, and it helps you get used to your body, and it just is a good little transition step. So yeah, those are the things I'm doing to prep for labour. Those are my 5 top tips for getting yourself ready in mind and body. Obviously there's a lot of other things you have to get ready for the baby, but these are things I've been doing, I guess, a little bit more for myself to just help me be in the best possible place mentally, physically, for the big day. If you found this helpful, please do give it a thumbs up. Please do leave comments if you have other suggestions, because I know when I looked at content, especially as a first-time mum, I would watch the content and then I would read all the comments, because you've also got so many other experienced mothers like weighing in and sharing their experiences. So that's really helpful. So if you have any tips, pop them in the comments as well. If you've got any comments to add on the things that I've mentioned, pop them in the comments. And yeah, basically just wish me luck, because my due date is now 9 days from today. I'm super excited to meet her and to start the next chapter, and just fingers crossed that it all goes well. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye.